Hi, this is Stephen Brower from Raritan Valley Community College. This is meant to be an addendum to CSIT 211, System Development and Implementation. The slides that the publisher provides are copyrighted, and I'm not allowed to put them out on the internet. So this YouTube video, I can't use the slides that the publisher has, otherwise I'll violate the agreement that we have with the publisher. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to tell a series of stories. In a sense, the slides that you're going to see is sort of the outline of what I would be saying in the classroom had we met in the classroom. What I would suggest is if you don't have the slides for Chapter 10 in front of you, you might want to bring those up so you can look at the slides for Chapter 10 and listen to this at the same time, because some of the stuff I say might be in line with what is going on in the slides. So in terms of the system that we design, the architecture that we come up with the system, there are some things that can drastically influence what that system is going to look like. And one is the sort of the organization itself. And there are so many aspects to just saying that, but it can be the way in which the organization has used computers, maybe what computers they do use. Are they using portable computers, desktops, iPads, or are they all on mobile devices? So it's really the technology associated with the organization can have an influence, but also can be the way the organization handles transactions, and that can have an influence on the system as well. The book does talk a little bit about sort of ERP and supply chain management, and there would be a handful of systems that would look in that direction. Another major thing is cost. And how much is it going to cost to develop a system? How much is it going to cost to buy a system? One of the terms that the book uses is the total cost of ownership. How much would it cost to actually own the source code? Now, this was a story that I had told in a prior week, talking about how a place I used to work at had made a request to the company to find out how much it would cost to buy the source code, and it was this phenomenal number. I'll just put it that way, in the millions. And there are advantages of a company owning the source code. They can make the changes. Disadvantages, they are the ones that are supporting it, and that has to be worked into the long-term costs of the system. Something else that can affect the design or the architecture of a system would be what are the current systems that are in place that the new system needs to work with. And there can be remnants of the effect of an old system that has worked its way into the culture that is something that can't be rid of. And I will tell a story about Banner. So Banner is the underlying database that Raritan Valley uses for the registration system. So you, as a student being in this class, it's the Banner system has a record that, you know, this student, this G number is in this CRN, this section of the class, and the course is titled CSIT 211. All of the courses at Raritan Valley have 4 characters: ENGL, ENGR, MATH, ESLS, BUSI. Every single subject code is 4 characters. The old system that Raritan Valley used before I even got here, I got here as an adjunct. I started in January of 1999. The old system was already gone. The new system that they were using as of 1999 could handle other than 4 characters, but it's ingrained into the college. You have to use 4 characters for subject code. You can't use anything else. This similar course at other colleges might be CS 211, and Banner supports it, but Raritan Valley, the culture, doesn't. So that former system that one that hasn't been here since before. I mean, it was the late 90s, the last time that system was used. But the remnants of that system has ingrained itself into the culture, and they won't. I'm sorry, I'm venting. I'll shut up. I'll move on. Another aspect in terms of integration of the system has to do with, does the system have portals? We have a Lion's Den portal here at Raritan Valley, and if we do acquire some other system, they want to integrate it into that. And even if they just use another system, so like Canvas, we can get to Canvas from Lion's Den. And so that is, if we do look in the future for replacing the learning management system, one of the things to consider is, well, how can we hook from the portal that we have, Lion's Den, into the learning management system that we will have. Some other things that can have an effect on a system would be what are the underlying computing platforms? Now, one of the things that the book does get into is mainframes, and I want you to not think of, and I'll admit this myself, I used to think of mainframes as being these old antiquated things, and our job was to replace them. Oh my God, they're the most powerful computers in the world. These mainframes are incredibly fast. The processors make RPCs look like, I don't know, bricks. I mean, it's just they perform very well. And so don't get hung up thinking that the mainframe is like this old foreign technology. It is just big. It is a BFB, a big, fine box with a lot of processing power. And it might be that the new system that we put in may have to work with that mainframe, or the new system we put in has to run on the mainframe. And by the way, Windows can run on a mainframe. Windows can run on the mainframe. Java can run on a mainframe. So stop thinking that mainframes have to be, punch cards and COBOL, although that still exists. Well, the COBOL still exists. That there are some modern operating systems and modern software development tools that are on mainframes. But computing platforms would also stretch into, I think I already alluded to it, where things like portable devices, mobile devices, iPads, tablets, those kind of things. The book, the network that a company has can have an effect. We're going to revisit networking in a little bit, but that can have an effect on the system itself. And actually, sometimes for proposing a new system, it actually could be part of the system proposal is to upgrade the network platform. If you're going to put in a system that has a lot of image processing and the system can't handle high throughput in terms of gigabits of data going through at the same time, that network may have to be upgraded. In a prior lecture, I think on chapter 9, which was databases, I went off into a client server thing, and a diatribe, I don't know, whatever it was, I went off on client server. And so the slides that the publisher has and what the book has is a better description of everything I was trying to say but didn't say. But it was kind of showing where does the logic reside. Some of the logic, and I think the term they actually used was application logic, and I think the term I had used the other week was business logic. But where does the logic reside? Does it reside in the server? Does it reside in the client? Or does it reside in a piece of software that's in the middle between them? So there are some number of terms that the book does get into in more detail than what I had done or what I had done here. And then the cloud. I mean, this is such a nebulous thing. Everyone says, oh, the cloud, the cloud, the cloud. Thank you. But the internet. Now, one thing that I'll do as a footnote on this is if a company is going to be communicating site to site, they may not want to use the internet. They may want a more secure way of communicating. So they may have private communication lines. They may use a VPN, a virtual private network. So depending on how they're going to communicate site to site, will have an impact on how that's done. The other thing is there are companies who they offer their internet-based servers as a service. And so it's something that maybe we don't have a mainframe, maybe we don't have servers, and instead of acquiring them, then maybe we can just use the services of a company that provides those things. So that's something else to consider. The book also goes off on talking a little bit about Web 2.0, and it's sort of this nebulous thing because people will approach it a little bit differently, but there is one of the effects of the applications that are in Web 2.0 has to do with the performance of the network itself. So possibly to use a number of those things, the network may have to be upgraded. Where does development take place? So systems that are developed in-house, any code that an employee is asked to written, well, by the way, make sure you have a non-disclosure agreement and with the employees. If the employee has signed a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, part of it would be that anything that they create would become company or property of the company. So if the programmer leaves, the code stays with the company. So some advantages of homegrown systems is that the company has the code, so they can control it. They're not relying on an outside company to make changes. And the other thing is they can prevent changes from being made in a certain direction that are different than what they want. Now, where that development is done, the development can be done by employees of the company. The development can be done by contractors. And so contractors, well, there's two kinds. There's those that are in this country physically and those that are out of the country. And so outsourcing and offshoring has to do with kind of where those people are. You can have someone who's a resident of New Jersey, a U.S. citizen, lives here in New Jersey, and they're a consultant for another company. From that company's point of view, they're outsourcing to that consultant. But a company also can outsource that to someone who's overseas. All right, I just had a notification that popped up on my computer, so I'm hoping I didn't lose too much. I think I was going off on offshoring. I'm hoping I finished that. Off the shelf. So off-the-shelf systems would be ones where the entire thing is purchased and can be used sort of as is. And a horrible example of this, or this is an oversimplified version of this, would be Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word is word processing. Yes, we could develop our own word processor, but why develop our own word processor, or why even pay a company to do it? It already exists. So an off-the-shelf product that we can use for word processing is Microsoft Word. Well, Banner is an off-the-shelf system, and depending on what changes need to be made, there can be rolled out with very little changes to get that working. Application service providers would be ones where we don't have a license for the software directly. We're paying a company to provide that service for us. And what system integration would be taking the mix of these. Software that we develop in-house, or that we develop, software that we acquire, and services that we acquire, and getting them all work together would be part of systems integration. The book goes off on some various forms of processing, is whether the processing is done immediately or whether the processing is done later in batch. And that can have an effect on the system that's being developed. And the other thing they refer to sort of like a point of sale system in terms of inventory being updated. The book goes into a huge tangent on networking, and I just allude you to, or direct you to look at the description of this course, because it's pretty much, it's almost the entire course in 5 pages.